Welcome to the fastest stuff in town. Today on Masechtas Makkot stuff Yud Beis. We are going to begin on Yud Beis with Aleph, about 6 lines from the top. Nigmar Dinu v'chulu. So we continue to learn about the laws of the person who killed B'shogeg, and he goes to the Ori Miklat. Omer Yehuda Marav. Shtei tiyos tayoyev b'oisa shah. So our Mishnah in yesterday's daf said that when you are sentenced to go to the Ari Miklat, that is where you need to stay. Asher Nashama Sham Tehedi Raso, that is your place where you're going to live. And it doesn't even make any difference, even if you are of an important stature, even Fil Sar Saval Yisal Kiyai Ben Surya, any Yaitz Mishum Oil. You're never allowed to leave. That's the reason why we're talking here that Yoav made a mistake at that time. Yonas Yoav el Oyel Hashem, that Yoav went to the oil, and he grabbed hold onto the corners of the Mizbech. So that's what he did. Says Rashi, who tafas b'Mizbech shel Bama shias David lifnei Aaron, that he grabbed onto the Mizbech in which David Hamelch had built. Shahaya ba'oyel asher natalo David be'ir David, that this was in the city of David. K'dechsev Yonas Yoav el Oyel Hashem, that he ran there. Says Rashi, Matzina b'divrei hayamim shasa David mizbech lefanav v'yef shalom mizbech shel Shiloh. It's not possible. We're talking about the mizbech in the time of Shiloh, in the time of Shmuel. Shu haya b'mei David v'Shlomo. Because it was already, as Rashi says on the side, begivoin, the ananamrinan, etc. So we already know that the Mishkan was no longer in Shiloh. That was earlier in the time of Eli and with Shmuel. So therefore, it couldn't be that that's what it's referring to. Okay. Anyway, so that's what he did, and he did this to try to be protected. So Tash, El Gagai. The truth is only the top. The toughest B'Krai Noisav. He grabbed onto the corners. Tash El Mizbech Beis Elamim, V'Tavas Mizbech Shel Shiloi. Now it says over here, interestingly enough, it says that he grabbed onto Mizbech of Shiloh. So again, Rashi says, V'Esher Loimer Mizbech Shel Shiloh Shehu Hoya B'Mei David V'Shlomo. Okay. Abaya Oimer. So that's why it's a different girsa. As Rashi says, it was in Ir David. So Baya says, Baha nami mitata ta shenu kayin el kayin ve'avoid biyadav zarhaya. That the only time it does any form of protection is if you're a kayin doing the avoda. However, he was considered to be a zar, like someone who is not to do the avoda, which is typically a term for a non-kohen. So with that, we look immediately to question 11. What were the mistakes that Yoya made when he ran from Shlomo to the Oyel Hashem? So he made a mistake because only the Gag of the Mizbeach would protect, not its corners. He made a mistake that it's only the Mizbeach Beis Elamim, not the Mizbeach Shel Bama. And the question is, which Mizbeach was it? But it was a Bama. Okay. Weiter. Three mistakes the angel of Rome will make. Who is this that came from Edom, which is Rome? Chametz begadim, with stained garments. Mibtsara, so Tayashin kolates ela batsar. V'hu goyla lebatsra. So he thought that it would only be protect she'enu kolates. It would only be protected batsar, and he was goyla lebatsra, which is a different location. It says Rashi. V'afal pi she'en hamalachim basav adam kasabo hakasiv ke'en harigas ha'adam, like a person who died, or shavar ha'oizen, like to break the ears. Maha yichal shmaya. Okay. Toya she'enu koletas el shageg v'hu mezid. He was bemezid. Hoya toya she'enu koletas el adam v'hu malach. Only a person can be saved, not a malach. Hu oimer v'hu malachu. Amr abavo ari miklot lo noslu kvura. The truth is that the place of Ari Miklot, we don't bury people there. That the open areas are for their animals, and for their belongings. That the whole purpose of the Ari Miklot is for people to live there, not to have cemeteries. So basically, what do you mean? We saw in the Mishnah, Shama, that Shamtehi diraso, Shamte misaso, Shamte kiburasai. The person is buried in the Ari Miklot. There, you're right. Only when it comes to the Ritzach himself will be buried in the Ari Miklot, but not other people. As we said, the majority of the people in the city of refuge are talking not rights. Kashem shir koileta, so to the tchom. Minhu v'yashaba ba v'lo b'tchom. He's supposed to only be there and not in the tchom. So the tchom achar is not koil, doesn't protect. In order to protect, even the tchum protects. However, you're not supposed to live there. That's only in the city. So lador, to live there, typically then oisin sada migrash v'lo migrash sada. Well, migrash ir v'lo ir migrash. There is a requirement that the way it's produced, as is found in the Psukim, says Rashi, Shenas Levim Alpayim Almas Saviv Ha'ir, that we have 2,000 almas around the city, and we do this on purpose so that we just don't have it just completely all like a city, almost like in Manhattan. We have Central Park, which is smack in the middle of Manhattan. If we didn't have that, then it would all be one big city. So also, when it comes to Sdei Leviim, they had 2,000 amos on the outside, and therefore you can't have certain areas which are designated for certain non-living quarters to live there. So obviously, that would not be allowed anyway. So we're talking about tunnels. That's Rashi, Tachas Akarka, Shin Oichos B'migrash, Klum Momala. So maybe the guy could live underneath the ground, right? You can think maybe you can live in like a cave in that area, which doesn't affect the actual ground above, but because of Xeris HaKasav, he's not allowed to do that either. And the Goyal Hadam kills the murderer. So mitzvah b'yad Goyal Hadam, it's a mitzvah for the Goyal Hadam to do it. Ein Goyal Hadam Rishus biad kol adam. If let's say he's not around, so then anyone else could do it. So this is a little bit of a difficult question that we're going to see over here, which is TA 13. Im yatsi yatsa haratzech as gvul ir miklasa v'ratza goel hadam as haratzech ein lo dam el gimel shitas tanoim iku b'din goel hadam. So let's go through them as we find the answer over here, which is TA 13. So let's just make sure that we get this all down clean. So fine. So that's Dibri Rabbi Yossi Haglili. So Rabbi Yossi Haglili, let's see. Yeah, so that's the first shita, that mitzvah biad goyel hadam, and if there's no goyel hadam, it's rishus biad kol adam. That's one opinion. Rabbi Kiva Omer Rishus Biad Go Adam, he's allowed to do it. The whole Chayav Olav. So there's different gearses over here. Chayav Olav, or if we look in the Girsa Sabach, Ein Chayavin. So it's different gears, which makes the question all even harder. So my time Rabbi Yosef Glili. Why does Rabbi Yosef Glili say that it's a mitzvah Biad Go Adam and everyone else is Rishus? So Miksiv Im Ratzach, it doesn't say if he does it. He's supposed to do it, so it's a mitzvah. Rabbi Akiva Miksev Yirtzach doesn't say you will kill him, right? So maybe you won't. So because maybe it's only Rishos. Let's say you have someone who left a tchum, so you're killed for it. So come on, look Rabbi Yossi and Glili, look Rabbi Kiva. So who the Ki Aitan, Tana Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Ad Amdu Lifnei Eda, Ed Amdu Lifnei Eda Lemishbot. Yes, until he stands for judgment. That you can kill the guy, so Yachal Miyad, you think the Go Adam can kill right away. You can't do it until there's actually a case. Okay. So those are the three shitas that they want. This is what TA13. Rabbi Yossi Glili says, according to the first shita of Rabbi Yossi Glili, so he says, mitzvah biad gol adam, according to Rabbi Kiva, it's reshus biad gol adam, and the third sheet is the gol hadam neragim hargu lifnei amdu lifnei ha'edel b'mishpat, that actually he would be killed, right? Right? Matzah gol adam v'hargu neragolav. That's what we say over here, that if it was before mishpat, so then the guy would actually be killed. Okay, it's a hard question, but that is the answer that they were looking for. All right, let's keep going. Now, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Kiva, the first two opinions, I can understand the third shita, that if there was no Gemara, if there's no din yet, that the Gol Adam is going to be Chai Misa for killing the guy. So, but they don't hold like that. They hold it's a Rishos or it's a mitzvah. How do the Sanhedrin themselves witnessed a murder? They actually have to go to another court. They can just automatically kill the guy. So if the Ritzach goes out of the Ari Miklot, ainly El B'mezid, I can understand that he's putting his life in his own hands if he goes out on purpose. But we learn elsewhere, there's different gears here again. Look at the Gosa Grob, when it says V'hargoi B'mezid Neherag B'shageg Goyla. So if he goes out b'meis, he can be killed. B'shageg, he just goes back. So Lakasha. Ha command the amrin and dibur tekoshim b'niyadam. Ha command the amrin lo dibur koshim b'niyadam. The question is, do we say that this is how people stam speak, or not? And therefore, it could be coming to teach us this chiddush. And therefore, v'yam yatsa is not only b'shogeg, not only b'meis but also b'shogeg. Or you can say no, dibur toshim b'niyadam, and therefore we do make a distinction between shogeg and mezid because it's written koshim b'niyadam, so it's not for a drasha. Okay, so how come on the amr lo amrin and dib lo kasha ha come on the amr amrin dibur toshim b'niyadam ha come on the amr lo amrin dibur toshim b'niyadam amr bai mistaber come on the amr dibur toshim b'niyadam. It makes sense that this is how people speak. The end shouldn't be more strict than the beginning. What is that? We should say the same thing. That just like the first time, if he kills B'mezid, he's killed. So if he goes to Golos, it's the same thing. If he left, he just goes back. And not that we should say that b'shogeg and b'mezid is the same thing. Tani chadam av shaharig b'noi. If a father kills his own kid, nasul goyel hadam. So we make him goyel hadam. Tani idach ein b'noi nasul ein b'no ein b'noi nasul goyel hadam. We're not going to make a goyel hadam. So which one is it? So lema b'ha Rabbi Yosef Galili v'ha Rabbi Kiva. Maybe it's totally in this machlokas, whether it's rishos or it's a mitzvah. So if it is Rabbiin, mishari. Either way, is this allowed? After all, a son cannot be a shliach for against the father, to hit him, to curse him. The only exception is a mesis, someone who entices people to do what is Torah, that we don't show mercy or we don't cover up for him. So what does this mean? So says Rashi, Av Shaharges Haben, Beno Hasheni. Do we say that the other son Nase Goyel Hadam Shel Ochiv Vaharges Ovid? So if let's say there's two sons, the father kills one of his sons, the other son could be the Goyel Hadam, so we say maybe not. Because the only time we would allow it is by a maces, but over here. So therefore, that which we said, that Ein Benoi Nase Goyel Hadam B'Benoi Shel Retzeach, that is if mamish it's the son of the Retzeach, we're not going to do. However, if we're dealing with a grandson, Shu Ben Benoi Shel Retzeach, Ben Muzral Kvoidai. So we don't have the same warnings, same restrictions, grandson to a grandfather, and therefore he could be the Goyel Adam. So a son cannot be a Goyel Adam to kill the father, but the grandson can. Let's see the next Mishnah. It says Masnisin. So let's say you have an Elon, a tree, Shehu Oimed B'toichat Chom. Now the tree is within the boundaries in which is Koilet. However, its branches go outward, outside of the Tchom. Or let's say it's the other way around. The actual tree is outside of the safe zone, but the branches go into the Tchom. So in that case, what is the din? So the Mishnah says, Pasha kol knife. We always go after the knife. We go after the branches, which means, so let's say he's up on a tree inside the branches. So if the branches are inside the Tchom, he's in the Tchom. If he's outside the Tchom, he's out of the Tchom. Or minhi. So the Gemara asks a question. So Elon Shu'oimed, there's different gearses over here. Rashi says Bifnim, or B'toich Hafnim. Says Rashi B'Yerushalayim. This is referring to, as Rashi says, L'inyan Achilas Meiser Sheni B'Yerushalayim Hishnuya. So the question is, when it comes to Meiser Sheni has to be eaten within the walls of Yerushalayim. So what happens if you have a tree which is within the walls, however the branches go outward, so the question is, are you allowed to eat the Meiser Sheni in these branches, let's say? So we say like this, whatever is opposite the walls, inside is inside. Whatever's on the outside is outside. So apparently we make a distinction against what we say by Ari Miklat. Says Rashi, Amo lo nofo shadinan basa ikr. We don't say that the branches go after the main part of the tree, vo ikr basa knife. We don't say that the main part of the tree goes after the branches. So even though it's true, like we say, we go all after the branches, wherever the branches are, which is mashma, that even if, let's say, you're in the tree part, the actual tree, but the branches go outward, so you're not protected. Or the branches go inward, even if you're on the outside by the ikr of the tree, you're protected. But over here, no, we just say it's mamish totally on where you are in proximity to the wall. So it's not that we go after the branches. Branches, okay. It's not really a kasha because they're two separate things. Meiser ir miklat karamis. How could you compare Meiser Sheni to your miklat? Meiser b'chaymatel rachmana. It's all totally about the wall, right? The pasuk says lefnei Hashem elkecha tochlenu. You have to be in the wall. Ari miklat b'diratel rachmana. It's all totally in living. B'naifai mitaderle. A person generally will live in the branch part. Bikar lo mitader le. A person doesn't live by the trunk of the tree. So even if he is by the trunk of the tree, that doesn't count. You go busser where the typical dira is. And therefore that's the distinction. Okay, question 12. Question 12. Ilan she'ikara b'chutz v'noif b'fnim or kur b'fnim v'noif b'chutz him shadin an ikar busser noif will oimin bikar l'inyan ir miklot. So ikaroi b'chutz. I guess we didn't see this completely yet, but so let's hold off before we read this. We're going to delve more into this. So anyway, if Rami Meiser. So we already learned that we go buster the wall, but I'm going to ask you a kasha on where we don't see that when it comes to Meiser Sheni itself. The side B'Yerushalayim, again, regarding Meiser going after the branches, Halach Achar Knife. It says Beferish, you go after a knife. Bari Miklad, Halach Achar Knife. So the kash is, we do see when it comes to Meiser Sheni, you go after a knife. Not like we said before, that we said, Oimid b'chutz, the night lefnim, keneged achayim lefnim, kilefnim, keneged achayim l'chutz l'chutz. It just says, Beferish, you go achar a knife, which is the same thing as our Miklad. So Rav Kahana L'Kasha, Har Yehuda Rabbanan. That's actually a machlokas. The Sanya, as we continue to Yud Beis Midbeis, we learn like this: Rav Yehuda Oimer B'mara. If you're in a cave, and again this is referring to specifically by Meiser Sheni, Halach Achar Pischa. We go after the opening. So it says Rashi Kul Bifnim. If let's say the whole cave is inside, Upetucha L'chutz. But the way to get out of the cave, the opening, you're now outside of Yerushalayim. That's kula b'chutz, ubesucha lifnim kilifnim. So we go totally by the opening of the cave. It doesn't matter even if you're living technically inside Yerushalayim, but you're in a cave. That doesn't help because what matters is getting out. So it's all after the pischa, the entrance way. When it comes to a tree, it goes completely after the branches, which again we see that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the din is the din by Meiser Sheni. Okay, so Eber Hashem was Rabbi Yehuda Gabi Meiser Chomra. Maybe the only time he says we go basar the knife is by Meiser Sheni because we have to go strict both ways. What's that? Ikra b'chutz v'naifa b'fnim. Let's say the main part is outside of the wall and the branches are inside. So kihechi the benaiful matzi parik biikura namilu matzi parik. So in what way do we say that we're strict, that we go after the branches? It just means that you can't redeem the fruits because you can only redeem peros outside of Yerushalayim and bring money in. But once you're already in Yerushalayim, you can't redeem it anymore because you could technically be eating it right there. So therefore, the only reason why he says you go basar the knife is just to go chumrah to say that if the ikr is outside but the knife is inside, the branches are inside, that you can't redeem it. B'ikari namu matzi parak. So ikari b'mifnim b'naifim b'mechutz kehechad b'naifim matzi achol b'lo pediyah b'ikari namu matzi achol b'lo pediyah. On the other hand, you can't eat it in the opposite situation. So we're going strict on one level to say that maybe you are inside, therefore you can't be paid it. On the other hand, you may be on the outside, and therefore you can't eat it. El gabi armikla, when it comes to armikla, bishlam ikar bechutz v'nafla b'fnim. I understand if the ikar, if the branches are inside to protect him, kehechad b'naifel lo matzi katole, b'ikar nami lo matzi katole. So we're being strict and saying you're not to kill him, right? Because of this situation, we go after the branches. If the branches are outside, so how is it possible you can kill him? He's actually physically inside. So you're right. If he is by the actual part of the tree and he's inside, you can't kill the guy. However, let's say he's in the branches, you can kill him with arrows and rocks. You could kill him. Ki plagi b'mahavi ikaru darga, that the main part of the tree is like a stepping way, lenofo, because it's slanted to the branches. Mar savar havi ikaru darga lenofo, it's like a ladder. Mar savar lo yahavi ikaru darga lenofo. Ravashi Omer my acher hanoif af achar knife. It does. So second, another pshat of Ravashi, it doesn't mean mamish that we always go bust with a knife, but it's af achar knife. Sometimes we also will go after a knife, and therefore it's all totally on. Again, we're strict basically to say you can't kill him in either situation, but it doesn't mean necessarily that we always go bust with the knife, and therefore that's the explanation. Okay, we're gonna stop there. Let's look at this question now. Question 12. Ikaro b'chutz If the main part is outside, v'noif lifnim, and the branches are inside, put the Chachamim Rabbi Yehuda. So that's a machlokas between them. Ikar bifnim v'noif l'chutz. If let's say the branches are outside, lo amrin and shadi karo basar noifo. We don't say that the ikar goes after the knife, and therefore it's still considered to be like inside. But again, if the ikar is outside and the branches are inside, so that's where the machlokas stands. Okay. Let's see. This was again question TB14. Also, let's see what I wrote. Im ha'ikar bifnim az koiletais v'leim rinan hol basar knife shu b'chutz. Aval im ha'ikar ha'ilan b'chutz the knife bifnim az yesh machlokas im holach achar nov v'koletas o lav. Adkan.